Hello, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and integrate Firepower and ISE and create some rules to auto quarantine and auto remediate. So now we're getting into some fun stuff. Let's go ahead and open up ISE first. And the first place I'm going to have you guys go to is Administration, System, Deployment. And I've already done this, but I want to go ahead and walk you through the steps because you might, if you're starting from scratch or if you haven't watched any of the previous videos, you may miss this, and I don't want you guys to have any issues with that. Give me a moment while this, actually I'm going to change over to Firefox really quickly. All right. Okay, so going back here, we're going to go to Administration, System Deployment, and make sure that the pxGrid service is enabled, which I already have. Next thing I want to do while I'm here is go to Administration, pxGrid Services, and go to Settings, Automatically Approve New Certificate-Based Accounts. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now I'm using a CA, Microsoft CA cert, so bear this in mind. It might be a little different if you're doing self-signed certificates, but to me, I know that CA signed is pretty much the easiest for me to do, so that's kind of why I'm going with it. The reason being is if your CA, if your ISE node ever blows up or you need to create a new one, you don't have to reissue and reshare certificates between ISE and Firepower. You pretty much just have to make sure Firepower trusts the same root and you're good to go. So let me go ahead and get into both Firepower and ISE. And a couple things and one other thing. I'm going to also open up my CA root, so let me take care of that too. 10. I think it's actually just. So as you guys recall, there's not much we haven't done much with the Firepower services yet. We just kind of installed it and got a virtual FTD set up. So we're gonna, start from scratch pretty much here, except for there's something in line and it's not really doing much except essentially sitting there and recording traffic. I don't have it blocking anything. I just want to use it for the purposes of triggering something on pxGrid. So first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and go to, let's see, I want to make sure that I'm doing all the certificate work first, so give me a moment while I pull that up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and SSH over to my FMC. Which hopefully it's going to do. All right, I'm going to have to do a couple things for the certificate to create a certificate signing request. So let's go ahead and it's basically a few OpenSSL commands. So it's going to be sudo OpenSSL gen RSA out source. You can name it anything you want. I'm just going to go with SourceFire agent key 4096. My root password. All right, perfect. Sudo open SSL request new key SourceFire agent key, and out is going to be SourceFire agent.csr. Country code is US, CA, Irvine, Cisco Engineering FMC. There we go. That's pretty much all I have to do in the Firepower CLI. So I'm going to go ahead and open WinSCP and transfer that that request over. So give me a moment. I'm going to move. So let me try to do it from admin instead. Okay, perfect. I'm going to just put these on the desktop really quickly. Perfect. That's all I really need to do. I moved my CSR and my key over there, and I'm going to open the CSR over here in Notepad. Just more options, Notepad. Good to go. Let's copy and paste this and request a certificate. We're going to use that that pxGrid certificate we created before, and for anyone who didn't watch the video before, it's a simple certificate request template we created in Windows, the Windows PKI. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys so you can take a look again. I don't want to assume that anyone's watched all the videos, so I'll just kind of do a recap, but check out the earlier videos if you need a step-by-step guide on how to create this. So I go to my certificate templates, I go to manage, and there's that little guy right there. So the important things here were the extensions, were client authentication and server authentication, and the subject name was supply and request. I think I essentially copied the web server one, and I duplicated the template, and I used I changed the extensions there. So if you want to do that, good to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab that and download the certificate in base 64. Save. And the other thing I'm going to do is download this the CA cert, which is going to be download CA base and then 64. Download that as well. All right, so next I'm going to have to upload the trusted root to Firepower. So I go over to Objects, Object Management. Yeah, give me a sec. Hold on a second. Let's go back there. I think my server's running a little hot with all the VMs I've got on there right now. All right, now it's up. Now I go to PKI, Trusted CAs. We're going to add a trusted CA, so it's going to be CA root. CA root, and we're going to go ahead and pick the CA certificate we just downloaded, the CA root one, not the one that we created for, specifically from the CSR. So we're going to add that. And then we're going to go ahead and let's see, we're going to go ahead and go to System, Integration. Go to Identity Sources. By the way, on ISE, make sure you guys all trust under, we've already done this in previous labs, but you want to make sure under certificates that your trusted root certificate from the CA server is trusted, and that the pxGrid certificate that you're using for this is a CA signed one. So bear that in mind. So systems, integration, identity sources, identity services engine. So I'm going to go ahead and put my ISE ISE IP address in there. I'm going to go ahead and pick the CA root that we just added in there, which is somewhere down here. CA. There we go. I just saw it. CA root. I'm going to also pick that for my CA root. And then we're going to go ahead and pick the Firepower one. So this is going to be CA signed. And let's go ahead and grab that other cert we just created. And the key that we sent over, so that's the SourceFire agent key. Click Save. And, now let's go over to pxGrid services really quickly. Let's test this out. Success! Hooray! All right, we're not done yet. But if you refresh over here, you should see this guy pop up. So that's good. And you see it automatically gets the client group of ANC and EPS. That's adaptive network control, as you can see here, and endpoint protection service. Basically says it has the ability to quarantine. Not quite there yet, though, but let's go ahead and save that. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to configure our realm, so our AD integration. So let's go ahead and create a new realm, and this is going to be AD1. So the primary join domain is going to be securitydemo.net, administrator at securitydemo.net, super secret password, administrator at securitydemo.net. Okay, so CN users, DC equals security demo, DC equals net. I'm going to actually, both my groups are in the same place, so I'm just going to do essentially the same thing. So test this out, make sure it works. Woohoo, it works. All right, so we'll go ahead and let that join. Perfect, and let's go ahead and add a domain controller. So that's going to be 40. Test that out. Works. Let's see if we can download users and groups. Add to that to the included. And it'll automatically download users and groups every day. Let's enable the AD realm, and let's make sure that we can download users and groups. And it shows here that it's queued, so let's see. Looks like it already did so. So that's perfect. Let's see if there's anything. Let's go ahead and also create our ISE policy. So first thing we're going to do is go to an identity policy and create an identity policy. This is going to be, I'm just going to call this ISE. This is going to be our identity policy for the security demo lab. Done. Wait for it to pop up. While we're here, let's go ahead and close that because I don't need that. Sorry about the little bit of delay, guys. My system's lagging today, and I'm well aware of the reason. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a passive identity role. So let me go ahead and just call it passive. And make sure that the realms and settings are just going to be 81 and add. And that'll be just affect everything, essentially. Add. And let's see. I don't want any active authentication. I'll just click save. And I'm going to tie this to my access control policy really quickly. So you see that identity policy right there. We'll just go ahead and drop down and save it to ISE. And let's see. We'll go ahead and ignore. I don't think there's going to be any VLAN headers coming through, but we'll just go ahead and put that down and maximum active responses. Sure. All right, so if I go over to analysis, users should be able to see my users populated from Active Directory and ISE, so that's good. If you go to access control policy, you should also be able to create rules based on attributes that ISE provides. So let me go ahead and do so right now. Let's add a rule. And so you see there's a SGT/ISE attribute. So if I could say, yeah, I could essentially create a rule, defining, some profile device. So my Raspberry Pi profiles I created before, or a security group ID, or a location IP. So there's quite a few things I can create policies based off of, which is a nice little add-on. But I think the rapid threat containment part is pretty awesome as well. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and start configuring next for you. So next up, let's go ahead and go to policies, actions. And then we're going to go to instances. And the first instance we're going to create is going to be pxGrid mitigation version 1. So let's go ahead and create that. And this is going to be ISE pxGrid. Create. And there's only going to be two remediation types we're going to create here. So this is going to be mitigate source, and go ahead and quarantine by source IP. And the mitigation action is going to be quarantine. Then we're done with that. Then we're going to add one more. This one's going to be unquarantine. By source IP. Great. Done. Now we're going to go ahead and save this. Now, I'll kind of walk through some of the different things you can create as far as correlation rules to trigger quarantine and unquarantine, but the reality is, like, I'm just going to create a really base ICMP ICMP snort rule and just have that trigger it. But I'll go through some of the cooler things you can do with it. So let's go ahead and create like a custom snort rule really quickly. So we go to objects, intrusion rules, and create rule. Now I'm by no means am I a master of snort rules, but I'll go ahead and kind of make a play at doing one. So this one's pretty easy. I think it's just going to be like a connection attempt. Miscellaneous activity. Protocol is going to be ICMP. ICMP to internet host. And for the purposes of this lab, let's just go ahead and say source port was, actually, I don't even care what the source IP is. I'm just going to make sure it's at the definition. If it's an ICMP event and it's going to this guy, then go ahead. That's going to be my trigger my rule. And let's make sure that my firewall is off on that that device, so I can go ahead and ping it. Okay, perfect. It lives. Save, and let's go ahead and go enable that on the intrusion policy. I don't want it to drop it, I just want it to trigger an event saying it happened. So I'll go to policies, access control, intrusion. And since this intrusion rule from our previous videos is already tied to our existing access control policy, I just need to configure it here and deploy it, and it's good to go. So let me wait for that to pull up. And let's go to rules, ICMP. Should be in the 10,000 range yet. So we're going to enable that rule right here. And I want the SID numbers because it's gonna be important later when I go ahead and use this as part of the rule. So it's gonna be, that's the SID value. So let's go ahead and hide details, and rule state is going to be generate events. Perfect. Save this, commit changes. Now let's go ahead and deploy it to FTD really quickly. So while that's happening, let's go ahead and start creating our correlation policy. So policies, correlation, and this is where we define, what are rules, what's going to trigger this event, this automatic quarantine, and then what's going to trigger remediation, unquarantining. So first and foremost, let's go. It's a little weird because I feel like rule management should be the first tab you go to, and then policy management the second. But it's a little backwards. I have no power on how that's created, but it's kind of funny. So you first go to rule management. And that's where you create your rules. I'm going to create a little group here. Call it pxGrid. Click save. And create rule. So this is going to be our quarantine rule. Essentially, if you trigger SID, whatever, it's going to, we're going to have this be what triggers the quarantining. We'll group it with our pxGrid, and this is going to be if intrusion event occurs and it meets the following conditions. So that was going to be rule SID equals 1,000. Or was it 1 million? Yeah, it's 1 million. All right, that's going to be our quarantine rule. It doesn't take effect yet until I actually tie it to a policy, but this is where we define those conditions, those rules, and then we tie it to a policy afterwards. Now we're going to do unquarantine. Unquarantine rule. And we're going to also group that with pxGrid. And then we're going to do a connection event occurs. And let's go ahead and I created a little bit of a, I created a fun little rule that's going to, or a fun little web page that essentially is going to be our mitigation page. And just to show you what that looks like. You can essentially do it any way you want in your lab, but oop, I might have to change the rules, pause and change the rules on this to make sure I can access the, let's see. Oh, remediate. Perfect. That's going to be it. Snort remediation. But in reality, this could be, it could be going to a page that does like a remote scan of the desktop or the device and makes sure that the endpoint has been cleaned of viruses or malware. But this is just to kind of, my demonstration right here is just to give you the idea of the possibilities. There's a lot of things you can quarantine on, not just one SID rule. One of the cool things is just the flexibility of how many different ways you can trigger auto remediation. So, for example, I can say a malware event occurs, and it meets it's an endpoint-based malware detection, and the event type was quarantine failed. So it's something that's obviously on your network, and it's and if it was not quarantined, so you want to prevent it from spreading to the rest of your network, that'd be a good use case to potentially quarantine something automatically. Or a retrospective-based malware, network-based malware event. So what happens with that is if let's say something was downloaded originally and it was a file that was seen as clean or unknown, but later on it's determined to be malware, or it's sandboxed, and after 10 minutes or 7 or 10 minutes, AMP officially declares it as a malicious piece of software. Well, it can block all future downloads, but what happens to the person that already downloaded it? So this, if AMP for endpoint gets it, that would be amazing if you have it. But if you don't, you still want to control your risks. So that'd be an ability. You'd have that ability to kind of quarantine that endpoint and redirect them maybe to a splash page saying, "Hey, go ahead and remediate here." So let's go ahead and tie these rules with a policy really quickly. So we're going to create the first one is going to be our quarantine policy, which we're going to create here. And I'm going to call this quarantine. I'm very creative with names, as you can tell. We're going to add the rule, which is going to be the rules that we created before. So it's quarantine rule. Add that. And we're going to tie this little button right here. It says responses. That's going to be quarantined by source IP. And we're going to save that. And we can enable it now. And then we're going to go ahead and create our own quarantine policy. And let's add that rule, unquarantine. And let's go ahead and add that response. Click Save. And enable. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to alter my policy with ISE really quickly and make sure that my quarantine result is going to allow them to get to that web page to remediate. So let's go ahead and go to, I think I have a special quarantine one, don't I? Let's see what I have configured. So if you guys watched the previous video, I basically added oh, there we go. I don't have one specifically, so let's go ahead and create one. So it's going to be, you have to create a global exception, and I put session equals EPS stat, or session EPS status equals quarantine, or session ANC policy equals quarantine, and then I added a deny access. I'm going to get a little bit better than that. I'm going to go ahead and create a special one that result that allows them access to get an IP address, DNS, and to go to the remediation page and nothing else. So let's just go ahead and, I'm lazy, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy from my existing ACL really quickly. So let's go back here, don't care, add. IP any host, actually permit TCP any host 10.95.61.71 equal 80. Deny IP, denew IP any. Check the DACL syntax. DACL is valid. Let's go ahead and go up here and create our quarantine. Create the DACL, or add the DACL. Click submit, and go back to policy sets. Let's go ahead and change that really quickly to quarantine. Done. Save. All right, let's wait for the magic to happen. So let's go to analysis and correlation events, because we're going to have to watch this happen. So first thing first, I'm going to go ahead and sign into my endpoint, get on the network, and I'm going to ping that that endpoint. So let's see, make sure over here, pxGrid services, everything's looking good. Perfect. CMD. I think I'm still getting postured, so wait for that to finish. Okay. Also, I'm going to make sure my network proxy doesn't get in the way and try to redirect me to anything. So HTTP or HTTP 10.95.61.71 remediate MHT. I'm not going to go there yet. First, I'm going to get myself kicked off the network because I'm bad. Let's see how long it takes. Oh, 3 pings and I'm gone. What happened? Oh no. Quarantined. Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and unquarantine me. And if you want to see what it looks like over here, let's go ahead and get these events refreshed. Hold on a second. I'll just refresh now. There we go. You see there's a endpoint gets quarantined, and we hit that rule. So let's go ahead and unquarantine me, because I should have just enough access to go here and nothing else. Come on, Snorty, save my bacon. Foiled by Internet Explorer being glitchy. That's why we call it Internet Exploder, folks. I wonder if Firepower's seen the remediation yet, while we're waiting for Internet Exploder to do its thing. Restart the program, because Internet Explorer is kind of sucking. No, Firepower hasn't seen anything yet, probably because it hasn't even tried. Okay, let's try this again. As I said, I'm running it a little bit hot in my lab. I don't even want to look at the statistics for CPU utilization right now. Yay! Snort saved my bacon. Now let's see if I have network access again. Give it a second. Still in quarantine. Might need to change around the rules a little bit, but that's okay. Let's go back to policies. Correlation. Let's go to the rule management really quickly. pxGrid, unquarantine rule. Okay, let's say it just contains the string remediate. And let's save. It's a little general for most purposes, but I just want to make it snagged so we can view it remediating. So I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to clear the cache really quickly because I don't want it to go to the same page. Delete browsing history, just kill everything. All right, let's see if this will knock the rule off this time. Okay, let's see. Let's go over to analysis, correlation events. Not yet. That's fine. Let's go ahead and play around with this a little bit more. And apologies for making everyone watch me troubleshooting live, but I probably messed something up, full disclosure, but that's okay. So unquarantine, let's go ahead and make it a little more specific then. URL and contains is HTTP 10.95.61.71 remediate.mht. Let's just double check that in our browser. Yep, that's fine. Save. It's enabled. And unquarantine is there. So let's make sure that we snag it this time. I'll just try it over here. There we go. This time it hit it. I guess I just needed to get more specific. Sun quarantine happened, and hooray! I went back to client provisioning, which is essentially gaining access to the network, my pre-posture state, and I should be compliant now. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Was sweating a little bit when it didn't remediate, but I'm glad we finally figured it out. Thank you so much for watching.